All right, guys, we are partway through the PCS5 qualifiers for North America. Today I wanted to look real quick at Oath Gaming, specifically the series of games they played on the third day of qualifiers. This is the first time Groups A and C faced off against each other. It was Sunday. Specific date was the 23rd? Was the 22nd. The 22nd, A versus C played against each other. They won 3 games. Afterwards, Kickstart from Oath Gaming tweeted out that they could have won all 5 games. And so that seems pretty ambitious. But he's actually perfectly right. So I wanted to go through these 5 games, really point out what were the steps that they took, what were the key moments in each round that allowed them to win the games, and perhaps where it might have led them astray on the 2 games that they weren't able to really get that win. So let's just start here at the very first game. We're not going to go through every game start to finish. We don't have the time for that, which is why I'm going to pinpoint the 1 or 2 decisions each game, each round. So already, from the first game, Oath getting into this position is... they did it very, very well. But for me, the real moment that allowed them to win the game is in this series of events here. So even though with their circle shift, you have to assume that they would have to leave this position eventually, they do use the high ground from these bunkers to get as many angles as they can. We know how much Oath love third-partying, even though historically their best games have been when they've been able to third-party from a central position. We all remember their win from over here in this area, right? They'll shoot at you if they can see you. And so they're making sure that they can see you. They're also making sure that no one can come up from behind them. Like we have Cap coming up from around here, as well as S1 rotating in similar angle over here to these hills. Making sure that they don't try and bomb another position is probably goal number 1. And yeah, it's pretty safe for them at the moment, making sure that they can thin them out. But already they're going to be eyeing this position here across the road. We know how dangerous it'd be to cross the road, but when the circle shifts here, pretty good for them because it's not too far north and it still gives them position to play here on the edge. They also saw how thinned out, how much damage was done to the teams over on the east side, so it's easy enough for them to immediately cross the road. If they waited too long, however, there was going to be that risk of any of the teams from the north, and we're going to see what Veritas do. But also, any other team from these angles potentially shooting down on them while they cross the road. So making that well-timed push, Rela goes first, the rest are going to be following up, not far behind. It's from this position that they're able to easily take over. And you can see how well the timing is here because Veritas tried literally like seconds later to come down to this position. Oath are there first, and so they're going to be pushing them up towards the north. You could argue that this circle shift is in their favor, and it absolutely is in their favor, but it's not this shift that allowed them to win the game. I do think they would have had a really, really solid shot even if this circle shifted over here towards the west side. It would have been a difficult cross here because of how open it is, but considering how much fighting just happened, Oath know how wounded and weakened a lot of these teams are. It would have been a decent opportunity to try and deal that last blow. When you come into a multi-team fight, being the one that comes in towards the end is obviously going to give you a huge advantage. So I still think Oath, we could have seen a win from them no matter where the circle shifted. It's just the circle shift in this direction made it a little bit easier. But really it was crossing the road, taking control of this position. That was the play of the game for round 1 for Oath. This game, they get second place in. And I'll be honest, this game wasn't too difficult for them. So at this point in the game, Oath, they arrived at this compound I believe right at the end of Circle 1 when Circle 2 revealed itself. And they haven't had to move at all. So honestly, this is one of those games that Oath really, really want to win. As we all love to say here, you got to win the games that you're supposed to win. I know we know Highbuck loves to say that. It's absolutely true. There are factors in PUBG that you cannot control. The real game is making the best out of the situation that you're in. In a situation like this, Oath are really, really looking for a win. So Oath are playing this current position very, very safely. They know that with the trifecta of teams that we have here, if they're trying to push onto Sonics, they'd be third party by Gravity. If they're trying to push onto Gravity, they'd be third party by Sonics. And so instead, they want to play safe, play around this ridge. They know that it's going to be a utility dump late game with a bunch of smokes and flashes going in towards the end. And so they're just going to play into that and try and outshoot their opponent. In an end game like this, it really is on who spots whom win and who can shoot who better. Unfortunately for Oath, it does come down to, I believe, a 2 versus 1 between Sonics, and I think Snakers was the last one up. But if you replay this ending from this point on multiple times, it could have been a different winner. Even Gravity had a real shot into this one. It really is just the 4-man and, of course, mechanical prowess of who's still in this game to decide the winner here. So here's when their circle shift cut out this top section here, and I do wonder from this position, or at least I've been thinking about, what if Oath took this opportunity to try and throw all the grenades, utility dump onto Sonics, take them out, and then just have a sort of 1 versus 1 between them and Gravity. The only reason why that is risky is not only are they at a man disadvantage, even if you were to take this 1v1 fight, there are still a lot of snakes floating around, and you don't want to give a team an opportunity to sort of sneak on in. The hard cover here is still incredibly powerful. It's definitely an option there, but I don't blame Oath at all for trying to play towards that late game. And again, we saw it go down to a 1 versus 2, so this isn't a throw by any stretch of the word. So this game, they're playing it similar to the previous game, coming in from the edge early on. Previous game was from the south, this one's from the north, but still, edge is edge. However, they don't stick to that edge playstyle here because on this shift, I believe it is, where exactly is there to play? Do you want to try and take these compounds that you're likely eventually going to have to leave? No. Instead, what they do is make a total bomb send towards a little dip that is here. The reason why this send was very powerful, though, and this isn't even in a hindsight looking at where the circles ended up going, is strictly because how open all the edges are here. If there was an opportunity to swing all the way to the west, that could have been an option, but especially this late in the game, you don't want to make wide rotations because you're just asking to get shot at by multiple teams. And that's not even considering how many teams are potentially in this area at that time. So the most important factor for an edge play team is knowing when your edge is now unviable. And that's exactly what Oath did here. And it was from this point onward that we can speed this up, that they basically just lean on their mechanical abilities. They wipe Gravity in a very, very close fight. They almost got removed here. The ability for Oath to get to the wall in the first place and then just control this area was huge. Definitely, again, leaning on how good of mechanical players Oath are, whether they're a solo, duo, trio, all four, they're going to be a huge threat. But sending it to the dip that they did, when they did, was the play of the game. Now moving over to Miramar, this was another game similar to the round 2 of Erangel, that Oath didn't have to move all that much, but they're not sitting on their heels. They're constantly in different splits. If you look back, once they land at Monte Nuevo, they're already here in a split here, split here, split here. When the circle shifts away from Monte, like this is a huge split that they're trying to just take control of the map. They're then moving over here. Like around the mid game, they leave Relo here as in a 1-3 as the anchor position, which is very, very risky, but again, if you have the players that can hold on to position by themselves, absolutely allow them to do that. Relo, unfortunately, does get taken out here. Kickstart tries to save him. Doesn't happen, unfortunately. So, once again, they are down to 3. The game-winning play has yet to occur. Cards on the table. It was the timing of this engagement onto last minute's hold on this hill. They have been constant pressure onto this position to not allow last minute any sort of dominance, any sort of control, or attempt at grabbing it for themselves. If you look on the VOD, unfortunately, there aren't that many angles leading up to this or even of this fight at all. But the few times that you can spot them, it's just a bunch of smokes onto this hill because of the amount of pressure that not just Oath, but also Cap and I'm assuming even a little bit of Sonics are putting onto these guys up here. However, they still could have been a huge threat even in this circle just because of the high ground. And so Kickstart being able to make this send under him and then calling the rest of his teammates behind him is huge, because if they waited too long before engaging last minute or even just wanted to wait for last minute to push into them, who knows what Cap's movement would have been. And now with last minute out of the game, they're in a great position to capitalize on, honestly, Purdy taking out 2 members of No Cap. Obviously, I still think Oath could have easily won, whether Purdy was there or not helping them out. But it should be noted that Purdy being a little bit of a wedge between all 4 members who were still up by No Cap did help out Oath just a little bit. So in the final round, the second Miramar of the night, I'm skipping ahead all throughout the mid-game because, again, very well played by Oath, but that's not where I think the important decision-making was. They just held control of their compound around the lob and D to fields, good rotations, knew when to converge, when they could hold splits, etc., etc. But this is a key example of why sometimes in PUBG, a game is decided by a single mechanical execute. It's why I like to refer games as rounds and look at them as part of a whole rather than a single game being essentially a closed off system. But really it comes down to this decision that they do here, which is with the circle shift onto wildcard like this, and then TSM here on the left. Sure, they could push onto TSM, but it's about taking position here that's actually still in the circle that's important. They roll up, and they actually try and go for a drive-by with the approach. And the reason why I think that was honestly the only play is because there's a tractor somewhere around here. Might even be this, if that's not the shack itself that Wildcard are playing in. Well, there's a tractor around here they can use as hard cover. Unfortunately, that's an obvious grenade range. In fact, even their last position here was in grenade range from Wildcard. So really the only play is for that drive up, is to get at least one knock, preferably two, onto Wildcard, and then have the rest of your resources completely take over this position. I don't think that there's a reasonable opportunity for Oath to try and win unless Wildcard completely throw from this position. And so even though Oath do go out in second place because those two got removed, and now 3 versus 2, they have all the cover, they have all the positioning, that was Wildcard's game to lose in those final few moments. And so trying to upset them with that drive-by was honestly the only real play. Oath had the ability to make executes like that work. So if we were to run this simulation multiple times, I don't know the percentage chance of them coming out on top, but it's enough that Oath have to take it. So yeah, that was a quick look at all 5 games that Oath played. I agree with Kickstart when he said that they could have won all 5 games. That's not a knock against them, however, because even being able to win 3 games in a day is huge. Getting second place on the 2 other games that they played is huge. And just the ability to get into those top positions, playing very well throughout the early game and the mid game, even ignoring what happened in the end game, is a huge indictment? It's not indictment. Why do I think it's indictment? Ah, there it is. Affirmation. That's the word I'm going for. Being able to get into either first or second place 5 games in a row is a huge affirmation of Oath's abilities. These guys just won ESL. They've always been a top contender, but they are on a tear right now. And so if you're haven't been watching and you're not scared of Oath, now you know you should be.